Since dolphins are apparently kidnapping people now, I figured, you know what, let's talk about why dolphins would do this in the first place. And it might be because we've kidnapped a lot of different dolphins and used them for some very odd experiments. And one of those being the 1960s NASA experiment done by Dr. John Lilly. And you may be confused asking, why would NASA have anything to do with this? And we'll get to that at the end of this video. But for right now, I'll give you a quick snippet of what actually went down. So in the 1960s, NASA funded a study into dolphin communications, and they used a place called the Dolphin House. And what it was a house that was flooded. It was flooded, and they used 3 dolphins, one of them being Peter, who is the main subject of this story. Now, this was led by Dr. John Lilly. However, he couldn't really stay around to observe the dolphins and do the whole entire experiment himself because he had to travel often, so he was looking for somebody to help him out with this. And this is where Margaret Howe Levatt, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, comes into place. She wasn't really a scientist. However, after testing her out, they found that she had great observational skills, and she just wanted to interact with dolphins because she thought it was an interesting study. She thought talking to dolphins was cool, and this was based off a book she read whenever she was little about a lady talking to a cat. Anyways, this was a 2-year study. However, it became extremely controversial towards the end, and there was 6 months where she just pretty much stayed with Peter the dolphin for just 6 straight months. She lived there 24/7. But the problem with Peter the dolphin was that he was a young, highly sexual male who would often get distracted by these ideas by rubbing himself on her. So instead of going through the whole process of picking him up, taking him over, and dropping him into the basement with the other 2 females so he could relieve himself, it becomes such a big ordeal that she started doing herself. Now, she said that there was nothing weird about it. Matter of fact, people could watch this during the study. It wasn't so much sexualized on her side the way she puts it, but the problem is the word got out to the wrong people, and that would have been Hustler magazine, who ran an article and blew it way out of proportions. Now, do I think it's wrong? Yeah, I think it's weird in general. However, I know that Hustler blew this way out of proportions. Now, that wasn't exactly what ended the study because this was being observed by other people, and it just wasn't that big of a deal. What really killed the study was whenever Dr. John Lilly started doing experiments with LSD on the dolphins. Now, this was a major problem for Margaret, and she pretty much told Dr. John Lilly, she's like, listen, you can do whatever you want to the other dolphins. I prefer you didn't, but I'm pretty sure you will screw up the whole experiment if you do this to Peter. And she just absolutely didn't want nothing bad to happen to this dolphin, so she was trying every way in the world to get him to not do it. Decidingly, he didn't do anything to this dolphin. Now, the funding just straight up got cut off, and there was multiple reasons. Number one, the experiment was classified a failure because they couldn't get Peter to communicate fluently. He could speak some words, but he wasn't very good at it, and they said that he really didn't have a comprehension of what the words actually meant. But with the article coming out from Hustler blowing this plum out of the water, and the doctor kind of injecting all the animals with LSD, the funding was just straight up cut. NASA was like, yeah, we're just not doing this anymore. And unfortunately, that house was shut down. They moved the dolphins to another place. Apparently, it was a closed bank that they ended up filling it up for dolphins. And after a couple weeks of being in a dark, dingy tank, Peter the dolphin just took his last breath and sank to the bottom, just pretty much unaliving himself. And they said that this was due to depression, which is really wild because dolphins are one of the few other animals that actually do that. Now, whenever I originally read this, I was very curious about a lot of things. One of them being why did NASA fund a dolphin communication story? And we've all heard it, it's illegal to communicate with dolphins, and they are one of the smartest animals on the planet. So it was very interesting to me why they would do this, not to mention that they probably have UFO bases down in the middle of the ocean, but we're not going to talk about that. But the reason they actually did this study was because NASA was interested in the possibility of encountering intelligent alien life, and they were kind of looking for some way to understand how humans might communicate with another intelligent species with very different communication skills. So, that was the 1960s. There was a lot of stuff about UFOs falling out of the sky and people getting abducted and all kinds of stuff. So I don't know. I just think it's kind of curious that NASA funded this for those reasons. Anyways, I did a video about this on my old account, and then every time I see something come up about dolphins, it pops in my head, and I was like, you know what? I should tell people about it again because this story is absolutely wild. So with that being said, if you would like to follow me and hear more weird, wild stories and stuff, you can do that. That's cool. Yep. More. Okay. Have a great day. Bye.